have questions, now's the time to ask them. And just a real quick, we're going to verify this, but I think these are the two next dates. April 16th, we're going to do an evening function, a holiday in Midtown, which is over by the ACC Highland Mall, more central Austin. And they can grow with us. The larger we get, they have the space for us. And then Saturday, 11 to 1, we'll do holiday in Midtown. Yes, John?
Yeah, I've got just a couple. Are there any, most everything here seems to be based on transaction of the sale. Is there income being generated that's passed on to the investors from the rent?
Yes, any income into the fund is passed on to the investors. So if we're holding property for any period of time, let's say we acquire a retail center, those rents are distributed to the investors. If we acquire a single family home that has a tenant in it, same thing. If we do a loan, that interest income to the investors. This fund, every income from the asset goes into the fund.
Along those lines too, the investments then can be dirt, they can be single family, multifamily, commercial, industrial.
All the above. No churches.
No churches?
No, I'm not going to foreclose on God.
You think it?
Don Conopo will. As a matter of fact, I called him out at the national conference because he had just told me the story that he had foreclosed on a church. So here I am speaking to private lenders. Were you there?
I was there.
And I go, we will not do churches because we're not going to foreclose on God, but Don Conopo will. You know that guy picked up 3 loans from that.
You might be concerned.
No. So no churches, no nursing homes, no daycare centers, no private schools, no sporting gymnasiums kind of thing. Generally speaking, if the asset has a larger degree of liability tapped to it, the more we'll shy away from it. Because if we were to bring in, say, a nursing home, and we're collecting rents and paying bills, we have a lot of liability, even though that's a lot of liability. But office buildings, retail, residential, fine.
When you're looking at retail, are you looking at semi-stabilized or secured value added?
No. What we're looking for the distressed property that no one else wants. We want to come in, take the property, and turn it into a performing asset. Because we want the upside potential. Sure. There are a ton of investors out there that if you can give them a 6, 8 cap rate, they'll buy your stuff all day long. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay? Give me the junk that no one else will look at. And if it has upside potential, we can strongly look at that upside potential. By the way, I don't know if you caught it, why I was willing to pay Vincent 14% because the upside potential is so great. So rather than make him feel like he's making a bad deal, why not let him continue to make money? You'll bring us another deal, right?
Absolutely.
So building that relationship.
David, I noticed Houston was missing from the rollout.
Yeah, we'll do Houston. I just don't have it there yet, but we will do Houston. Yeah, I mean, almost all of us have some sort of tie to Houston that's on the management team. Actually, Wade's from Victoria. Yeah.
There's South Texas, Houston, Victoria area. There's a network of people that I can tap into.
Yeah.
We're probably going to shy away from the Panhandle right now because everyone's concerned about the oil industry. Although I don't think it's going to affect the majority of Texas, but I just don't want to do any building or lending out there. It was great last year, but this year is not as great. Yes, sir.
2 questions. One, you're hearing a lot more information about crowdfunding, so I'm wondering if that's ever going to be a vehicle to bring sources into the fund itself. And then 2, totally unrelated, if somebody has an investment that they're exchanging out of and they want to go into another asset, would there be a tenant in common or some other structure that would allow them to invest with you into a property, that they would still be able to carry forward their basis?
Okay, question one is an easy one. Crowdfunding is a possibility, to raise money for an event, a fund like this. It's not my preferred way of doing it, and here's why. I have no control over those investors. I don't know that they are accredited or not accredited. And so I have to be able to disseminate that. And also, there's a lot of front-end fees from the crowdfunding source. And so if you were to do $100,000 into a crowd fund, and they took their 6% or 5% or whatever their percentage is, that's only $90-something thousand coming to this fund. You're going to want to make up that somewhere, that $6,000, $5,000, whatever it is that you had to pay on that front end. They're not going to pay it. That's my responsibility to get you back up to your actual investment. That takes a little more pressure. I'm just not a fan of that, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But there are people that are looking at doing that in the private lending, the private funds. They're looking at it as a way to raise capital. Personally, I'm just not a fan of it. I prefer my relationships with the investors because I build that relationship over time. I mean, I know about their families. I know what kind of business they are in or were in. I know when they go on vacation. I know where they're going because they share all that with us. I know that they celebrate their 100th birthday on a cruise ship. And I get a picture of the cake. So it's the relationship that I prefer building, and I can't do that through crowdfunding. It's great for a startup company, but this is not the vehicle for that. To your second question, if I understood you correctly, you're asking, can you take from one investment and do it into another investment? Is that basically?
Or come into one of the fund's assets as a 1031 exchange property, so
Well,
it'd have to be a tenant in common or something where they got title or they're on deed.
to clarify, most private funds are set up where you're actually a pool of investors. So if you come into a fund, your investment is spread out over all the assets in the fund. And so is your liability spread over all the assets in the fund. But if you want to come in as a fractionalized mortgage person, that's a different situation. It's just a one-off, one-on-one. And to answer your question, if you wanted to do a second one, then yes, we could do that. But most investors are looking for the passive income and they'd rather have their risk mitigated. And you mitigate risk by spreading your risk over multiple assets. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned that you are Texas born and bred, you prefer all your investments in Texas if possible. What other states would you consider?
Well, I can tell you what, I will not consider Atlanta. We've had this conversation, I think. Georgia is still one of those states that hasn't started building back up yet. I'll look at Florida, I'll look at Arizona, I'll look at Nevada, I'll look at California.
Arizona, more specifically, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Glendale, that area.
Basically, yeah. New Mexico, no. Colorado, yes. Michigan, never. You know what I mean? North Carolina, South Carolina, yes. Basically, yeah. Did you know Las Vegas is the 17th largest, fastest growing city in the U.S. now? People said, you're going to invest in Las Vegas? Oh, yeah, it's the 17th fastest growing city in the nation. I mean, go back to one of those houses, the $310,000 value. It originally sold for $700,000 a few years ago. But the market value today is $310,000. Is it going to climb? Most likely. You had a question, Jim?
Yeah, those people that are going to be investing in IRA funds in this thing, since some of the properties going to be leveraged, there's going to be a UBTI that will be paid, have to be paid, right? On those investments.
Do you understand UBTI?
I think I understand it. My ACPA has actually asked me if I am subject to UBTI because I've had properties that I've invested in my IRA that have leveraged, loans.
Tell me what your understanding is of UBIT.
My understanding is if the government thinks you're making too much money off your investment, they're gonna grab it. Some form or fashion. That's my understanding.
A good example of UBIT is University of Texas is a nonprofit entity, right? And it creates money from fees and tuition and all this stuff. Grants, that's how it creates money. Rental of their dormitories, that's their normal way of doing business, okay? Now, in their commons area, they own a pizza parlor. And that pizza parlor sells to students and all the people that live around the university. And it delivers even up to where I live in North Austin. That's unrelated business income. The U part. That income from that pizza parlor, now UT has to pay, because they are a tax deferred, tax exempt, they have to pay taxes on that income. That's the best way for me to explain to you that. You know, every custodian, especially as the REI, they just put these forms in the mail every January, send it out to every one of their people going, are you subject to UBIT? You know?
So that's my CPA asked me that.
And you're not, like you're in Pride of Austin, you're not subject to UBIT because it's all related income.
Yeah.
Now, if we own University of Texas inside the fund, and we had tax deferred or tax exempt status for that asset, and it too still had this income coming in, yes, then we would have to report that somehow to the investors in the fund, that part of the income coming into the fund is unrelated to the actual business that is in a borrower in the fund. Not that UT would ever borrow money from us.
Yeah.
But I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, and they've also added another acronym, UTFI.
Yes,
Unrelated.
UTFI is one that's more common now with debt finance real estate.
Yeah, it's UTFI, they've added that acronym, unrelated debt finance income. So if it's debt finance income, they try to grab some tax money on that.
Right. You know, probably the first year reporting of this fund, you may be able to get away with taking the income and reporting as capital gains. But after we do so many projects, the IRS, I think it's like 15 or something, the IRS goes, wait a minute, you actually do it, this is your business. So you can't declare this as capital gains income. You know, like if you and I were doing deals, we could do like 10 or 15 a year and get away with it as capital gains. If we start doing 20 a year, it's no longer capital gains, that's ordinary income. Because that's what we do day in and day out. So UDTI, I don't think it's going to affect us, but I will check on that.
David, you said there were semi-annual distributions?
Yes.
Is that January and July?
July and January, yes.
And then if someone comes in April, how is the July distribution paid out?
It's the same as most any other private fund. They're going to be weighted on the number of days you are in that distribution period. So if you come in midway, you're going to be calculating the number of days that you're in.
Yes, on ours, if it's intra-quarter, there's a flat 10% rate until the new quarter, and they get the interest rate, but they get the distribution. So it's flat 10% until they're in the fund after.
Okay.
And it is based upon their business.
That's very cool. So they're guaranteed the first few days of the first quarter they're in, they're going to make at least 10%.
Right.
And that's all they're going to
That's all.
make. That's kind of cool. Never thought of that.
Maybe was it 10,000 minimum?
10,000 minimum, and you're going to say, why would David do 10,000 minimum? I cannot tell you the number of prospective investors that I have talked to on a daily basis in Pride of Austin who did not want to put their toe in the water for $50,000. They want to try you out.
Sure.
They want to test drive the car, you know? So lower it to 10, and the other reason I did that is because there's an awful lot of accredited investors who have an old 401k rollover somewhere. It's just sitting there earning their penny, I don't know penny, earning their penny from TD Ameritrade, who's managing it. Sorry, that's it. And
I am an investor. I've done relatively well on my, it's just, I'm sick and tired of dealing with the yo-yo effect.
amen. I mean, you've heard me rail about Wall Street. You know, this is not that talk, but I get real excited about Wall Street and international banks. You know, I tell people who deposit in Bank of America that you're basically traders. It's Bank of China, folks. Come on. And if you deposit in Chase, all your money is over in Greece. Really? Kind of scary. They're bankrupting. Anyway, point is the question on the 10,000. There's a lot of people that have a little retirement account somewhere, and they would love to do something with that. And so this is an opportunity for them. I mean, maybe they have 100,000 in their bank, but they also have 14,000 in their rollover or their old 401k or whatever. It's earning them nothing. You know, this is an opportunity for them to move that into a fund like this. The other reason I did this, because Vincent and I talked about it, you know. He might have investors that aren't ready to pony up that 50,000. But if we can get them into our fund at a lower rate, a lower buy-in, and teach them the benefit of it, he then can go back to them and go, ready for the big boys. David's just a little boy. Right?
Sure.
I can wish. No, I mean, that is a possibility. So we help build each other's credibility by doing that.
Let's say on a broader scope, I mean, you've been in this business for a long time. What do you perceive as the biggest threats, and how does the fund overcome those?
I think the biggest threat is basically there's two things that Wall Street's grumbling about. One thing Wall Street's grumbling about is they want to raise the barometer or the benchmark of what an accredited investor is. They want to raise it to $500,000 or a $2 million net worth because they see what's happening. We're taking money away from them. They're greedy. You heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again, and I don't mind it being taken. They're hogs at a feed trough. They can't have enough to eat. You know? And they're never going to change that mindset. As long as they can eat your capital, they don't care about you. It's true. Anyway, that's one threat to this industry, is if they raise that accredited investor, because they're going to, that moves it from about 3-4% of Americans to maybe 5% to basically 1% of Americans. You know, that's one possible threat. I know it's been talked about right now that the SEC is not considering it strongly, but it is something that comes up. The other thing is taxation. Eventually, the federal government's going to realize there's a lot of money being made by these private investors. We got to go get it. They want their share. So I don't know that that's going to hamper the growth of the industry, but it is going to, you know, be a hiccup that we're going to have to work through. But by and large, private funds are here to stay. They're replacing community banks. And more of them are being developed. You know, I really do want to take ours, hopefully build it up from a private fund to a private REIT, and then maybe go public. I mean, beyond I mean, that's up to the young people, you know. The people that I'm working with on this management team, I've got 20-year-olds and I've got 40-year-olds. So I have generations that I'm working with who can step in when I'm ready to quit for good.
So you're in the 40-year-old bracket?
I wish. Unfortunately, I turned 62. I'm quite old. I know.
Shot.
I know. Look good, right? Tell me at least.
Make it in for 5.
So that's why we did the 10,000. Yes, Rich?
Could you go over the part about how since investors make money off of this fund again?
Sure. Okay, so investors are going to make 8% preferred rate. So again, if the fund made $200,000, its first year profit, or first 6 months semi-annual distribution, there's 200,000 in profit. 8% of that is going to go to the investors first.
Okay.
And then 70% of the remainder will go out to the investors.
Okay, so 8% is like the floor. I just have to put in Rich's language here.
Mhm. The 8% is your floor.
And then I can participate in some of the other pockets as well.
The 70% of all the profits, not some of them, all of them.
Oh, okay. All right, just wanted to make sure my math was right.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is a fund that's already established, correct?
Effective March this year.
Okay, so it was just in March.
Remember, I just left Pride of Austin
Right.
in December, so.
Okay.
Took me a little time.
All right, well, get to work. All right. No, I understand. Okay. Now, I was just thinking that maybe this had been in existence for a little longer.
No, it's just, it's brand new.
Okay.
And it's got a different income potential to the investors. It has a different risk factor than, say, Stallion or Pride of Austin, because they're lenders and their rates of return to the investors may be a little less. But it's a little riskier when you're the lender, than it is if you actually own the property. But real estate investment trusts, by and large, make pretty good money for their. I mean, you can go check them out. Even while, the public traded ones, go check them out. Their returns are pretty good. The difference is, in the PPM, we're still looking at properties that we can get in for in that 50 to 70% value range. Whereas if you go to a publicly traded, they may pay 100, 105% value of the property. And it takes a while for them to start turning profit on it.
Gotcha.
So every property or asset we're going to add, there's going to be equity in that asset,
Okay.
if it's not a loan,
Gotcha.
or if we're not participating with an open. I'm really very quiet.
Well, processing this.
Did I answer the
Okay.
question about the income
Yes,
for you though?
the other 30%,
Mhm.
80% preferred.
Mhm.
Okay, then the 70% will participate in.
Yes.
And then the other 30% goes to.
Mary's got to get paid.
No, it goes to the management team.
Okay.
Guess who's on the management team?
But all of that is after the 5% was taken off the top, right? Or 5% of the assets total assets.
Right. That's correct. The two Pride of Austin funds, you got 2% on the high yield fund, and I think that's 4 to 5% on the opportunity fund. I don't know what your management fees are. 2%?
But we're not doing what you're doing.
No, exactly. There's a lot more work in managing properties than there is in making loans. That's a true statement. It's more labor intensive. So it's a fair compensation. Most funds that are set up on private REITs like this, they charge anywhere from 8 to 10%. We're going to fix it at 5. I feel very comfortable with that. Any questions?
And you can.
Jordan, would you go see, I'm sorry, just give me a minute. Jordan, would you go ask if you can find Gloria, the catering manager, and ask her what the setup is for lunch? Thank you. Appreciate it. But I don't know where she is, but somewhere. There is coffee and water in that.
Okay, the entrance level is $10,000.
Yes.
Is there the next increment, does it have to be another 10 or can it be
No.
anywhere?
Increments of $1,000 unless it's a reinvestment, then it doesn't matter. Or if it's a retirement account, because they always have odd numbers down to the pennies.
Okay.
But if it's like you want to add to it, increments of $1,000. That's the way the PPO stays. Reinvestments. Do you have questions? Yes, sir.
I got in here a couple of minutes late, so you may have covered this in the first 5 or 10 minutes. The legal structure is just a typical limited partnership where you're the general partner and all the investors are limited partners?
No, sir. It is an actual, the legal structure is a limited liability corporation. It's owned 100% by the investors. And then they have a management agreement with the management company of the fund. So there's not a general limited partner arrangement. It is an LLC that is managed by this LLC.
You have to have a certain amount of money by a certain time frame.
Yeah, how much you want to give me?
That's fine. So, what's the
Well,
timeline on this?
I'm looking to raise, me personally, and I know I can do it. I've already got a number of commitments, but I would like to have $1 million by the end of April.
Okay.
That's my game. And then I think I'd like to add, 500,000 or so a month after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to grow it so fast. I mean, that's. I'm not bragging, but that's going to be something I have to look at because a lot of people are going to want to put money in, and I really have to make sure that we don't have a lot of cash sitting there, and I don't want to get drunk on money. So, but yes. To answer your question, I'm looking at probably $1 million by the end of April and then 500,000 a month after that. I mean, originally our game plan was $5 million for 2015, then double that for 2016 and double that again for 2017 was in our original business plan. I think based upon the commitments I'm getting from people that I've known for a long time, I have to up that, which means all my team is going to have to work harder to find properties. It can be done. Loans are harder. I think loans are harder to originate than finding properties, me personally.
Did you when you're doing it yourself?
Originating loans is hard work. And, like Vincent and I talked about when I sat down with him at lunch and explained the business plan of the new fund, he immediately seized upon it as an opportunity to enhance his fund. It's a way to work symbiotically to help him out. And there are other fund managers that will see that once we get it operating.
Who do I write the check out to?
I can't solicit publicly, you know that. And I'm in video. It's all good.
Should have gone 5 or 6C.
Pardon me?
You should have gone 5 or 6C.
But then I'd have to ask him for all his tax returns and his financial and a letter from his CPA. And I don't want to do that.